And that brings us to our action agenda and item number 13, which is action is required or appropriate on matters discussed. And we have one item tonight in executive session, which is 3A, selected employment items. Do I have a motion? Ms. Baumgartner.
I move that we approve selected employment items as shown in Exhibit A.
We have a second. Ms. Hammond seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. That passes unanimously. And that brings us to item number 14, which is the approval of the proposed superintendent's 2018-2019 goals shown in Exhibit B. And Dr. Melton, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to motions after that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gant.
Thank you.
In Exhibit B, you'll notice we've made revisions based upon feedback that you all have given after the discussion from September the 10th. Part of the luxury of us waiting from then until now to have this conversation is we have had many state meetings with a variety of divisions. Dr. Jakes has attended a meeting of 2 days for human resources officers. Mr. Giuliano has attended instructional leader meetings. Dr. Harris has gotten a variety of updates specifically regarding strategic plan that he and Mr. Holden have been working on to make sure that we are in compliance with new expectations as recently announced during the course of the last month. So when you look at Exhibit B to see the goals that I've brought forth to you for the second time, you're going to see some things that are very consistent. Down the left side, the priorities, those are the same 5 that you heard me share at the rally when we welcomed our faculty and staff back. And then the core of the work of the 5 goals that we've outlined for you are consistent with their strategic plan. However, this is in alignment with the updates that we've received as per the department with our individual statements below. So some of the things that you're going to see, such as a 4.0 rubric, that's to make sure that we're in compliance under Goal 4 regarding human resources. Then you see on page 2, the left side, this is our improvement priority that Advanced Ed is going to be expecting to see when they return in 2020. So we're going to be working towards that to make sure that we can produce that evidence and artifacts. And then the mission and vision and motto, of course, are consistent with things that we've been using since the last visit in 2015. Mr. Gann, I suspect there may be some questions since there has been some revisions since we discussed this in September. So I'll pause to answer any questions anyone may have.
Okay. Ms. Hutchison.
Thank you. And this is a wonderful document, and I certainly do like how it's laid out. It's very easy to understand. But I do have some questions. Goal number 1, item number 2, where we have academic growth measures that show the district's success bridging the achievement gap. In relation to that, showing the achievement gap, I was in conversation with someone last week who is very interested in seeing the success of our district and asked us to consider looking at the greatschools.org websites. And she says she doesn't know that much about it, but believes that perhaps that we can claim it. There's an entity can claim it, and there's some algorithms. But anyway, she asked if it were possible to help us better tell our story about the success in District 5 if we take a look at these websites and figure out what the algorithms are and what type of data we might provide them so that those scores are given a more accurate score to the individual. And as I think we've often heard, this website is often used by young families who are looking to move into a new home in our district, and it makes sense. You go to the internet to find information, and I think it's important that we just have the right information and that, people, it's not easy to dig down and find out what's missing in these evaluations. So I don't know if that's a possibility. I don't know enough about that site, but I just pass on that recommendation. And I have heard this from some realtors too who've requested the same thing. Mr. Gant, may I ask a second?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Actually, I have 3 things, but in goal number 4, and you just mentioned 4.0 rubric, but there are 3 different terms that I'm not familiar with. The hashtag Teach in 5, you just mentioned for rubric, and hashtag Lead 5. Can you very briefly explain
Yes, ma'am.
what this is?
Welcome to District 5 jargon first. We should have included parentheses to explain that. I want to ask Dr. Jakes to take the first two because Teach in 5 and the 4.0 rubric are both under her direct supervision. So Dr. Jakes, would you offer an overview and summary of those two items?
Absolutely. Hashtag Teach in 5 is a new campaign that serves as the umbrella for our recruitment and retention strategies. And so we brought together a diverse group of representatives, and we're taking on a new approach, a new innovative approach, just to freshen our recruitment and retention efforts. And we're also incorporating that into a Twitter campaign. And so hence the hashtag. And we know that we have pride in 5, but we also love to teach in 5. So it's really caught on. If you have a moment just to check that out, you can see just some great examples of why we teach in 5. And so there's a much bigger picture. It's still developing, still unfolding, but we're really having this innovative process to look at what we do, why we do it, and how we might be more effective going into the future.
So do people post things to that? And I don't do Twitter, so I might be using the incorrect terms, but so people post ideas? to
They
that?
actually, we have a great deal of response, and so as we're going out, as we're talking, as we're recruiting, we know that our teachers are our best ambassadors, our administrators, and so as we're involving them in the recruitment efforts, what we're finding is that they're helping us tell our story, helping us spread the message by posting photographs, comments, just a million reasons why they teach in 5, and just great success stories. It's exciting. Oftentimes you'll have a connection between another event that's going on, but we decided that our name would be synonymous with that, that hashtag, so that we could really take advantage to step forward, as opposed to just continuing to do what we've done. So that was a bit of a leap for us to step out into the world of Twitter, but it's certainly paying dividends.
And if I may add, Dr. Jakes and Ms. Hutchison, for you to understand, we're trying to put the focus in the classroom. We can have a recruitment table when there are fairs at universities and colleges, but we want people to be able to see in our classrooms. So our teachers are posting videos, they're posting ideas, they are collaborating online. So if you're a social media user, all you have to do is click on that hashtag and you see a professional learning community that's emerging. And so people are reposting, we're using it on Instagram as well, so people are posting and reposting and sharing ideas. And it's exciting to see how this is gaining momentum, and it's a recruitment for those that are looking at us to get ideas from our teachers. So if this is of interest to you, consider Teach in 5. If we're doing this and we're celebrating and identifying those behaviors and characteristics so others can learn from peers that may be down the hall or maybe on another campus, but it's still within District 5. So we're setting up some exemplars in a sense, but we're getting away from that having to be an administrator to recruit. We're getting away that it has to be someone in HR that recruits. Every single person that works in School District 5 is a recruiter, and it's for us to tell our story. So that's the hashtag Teach in 5. How about the 4.0 rubric, Dr. Jakes?
You're familiar with the term ADEPT and the ADEPT umbrella, the observations evaluation system that's been taking place. So the state has recently revamped that process, and we have a state-adopted rubric. It's known as the 4.0 rubric, which basically means it's on a 4.0 scale. And so as we're observing teachers, as we're carrying out the evaluation process, it looks much more like coaching and guiding. And so we have these collaborative teams that go into classrooms, meet with teachers, set goals, look at this rubric, and actually use it as a tool to grow teachers, to move them along, but also to evaluate teachers. It's simply called the 4.0 rubric, but I'd love to introduce it to any and all of you at any time.
Thank you.
That could
Great.
warrant a report at some time if you all would like to have that, and it's a superintendent's report. That could be an item that we could add in upcoming presentations. And then the third one I heard you ask for, the hashtag Lead D5, that's under Mr. Giuliano's supervision. So, Mr. G.
So this is our 5th year of Lead D5, so you may have heard we have a lot of educational jargon. So Lead D5 is one of those terms, but it's teacher-led professional development. So we have 3 days, typically, weather permitting, a year, where we have district professional development. And this is teacher-led and it's teacher choice as well. Teachers choose which instructional initiative they'd like to focus on, and then teachers lead this professional development. We, from the instructional department, train them and work with them throughout the year, even over the summer. So our teachers are very invested in the process to lead and be facilitators in this process. But ultimately, it's teacher-led professional development across the district.
So another hashtag, teacher voice, teacher choice, teacher led. But hopefully you see the theme we're trying to create here. And if I may go back to answer the response from Goal 1, Ms. Hutchison, tomorrow we have Parents Cabinet actually meeting here at Chapin Elementary. I'm sure Mr. Hutchison's looking forward to welcoming us back tomorrow. He may be setting up lunch right now, since I don't see him. We had planned to add to the agenda that we look at niche.com to make sure that families are engaged with that. So now we can add, in addition to that, thegreatschools.org. So now we'll have both of those. We're trying to increase engagement to make sure that we're telling our stories, because otherwise you're going to hear the best or the worst. You're not going to hear the number of happy, positive things that are happening that we can celebrate to make sure that we celebrate the world-class things that we do. So I'll add that in for tomorrow's agenda here tomorrow at Chapin Elementary.
Ms. Hutchins, may I say, Dr. Melton has brought in the era of the education jargon
And hashtags.
and hashtags. She,
And
she
hashtags.
didn't even call Mr. Giuliani by his name. She called him Mr. G, I think, right?
I'm sorry, Mr. Giuliano, my apologies. That's
I think she said
a
hashtag.
code switched right
hashtag
there.
Hashtag G.
Hashtag G, oh, yeah, oh, that's good, that's good.
We gotta get with
I
it.
just hope that y'all
Huh?
are proud of the fact that I didn't say pound sign.
I was so proud.
You you knew enough to say
Did you have anything else?
Yes.
Hutchison, do you have anything else in your?
I had a third question, but I can, if you,
Hold it a second, okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Hammond, I know you have one.
Well, mine goes totally along with Ms. Hutchinson's. Basically, several of the questions you guys have already answered was mine. But I'm really excited about the teacher-driven. I cannot tell you how important that is. In recruiting and retaining teachers, nothing's better than a teacher advocating for where to work in this district. But I did want to ask, under the Goal 4, I understand the diversity matrix. We've had that a while, haven't we? And that's worked well. Okay.
Yes,
Then-
ma'am, there have been revisions that Dr. Jakes could update us on.
Well, I trust you that it's good, and I'm glad we have it. I just didn't know if there was any major changes from, I was familiar with what we'd had for a few years, but is there a typical thing that maybe is securing it to even get the best candidates?
Yes, ma'am. We actually want to go much further than simply looking at a number or reporting a percentage. What we actually want to do is look at all of our efforts in the composite to develop a matrix that reflects all of those tenets of our new program, #TeachIn5. We want to make sure we talk about where we're connecting, when we're connecting, who we're connecting with, who's participating, and we want to go much broader. We think it's one thing just to look at a number that's very reactive. We want to be very proactive. We want to carefully consider what we're doing, how we're doing it, and we want to measure the difference that makes in terms of creating a diverse teaching force for our students.
Great. And then my other one, I'm really excited about the teacher-led professional development. I can't tell you how many teachers, and they would never say it to you guys, but how many teachers say, oh, it was a great professional development I had to go to today, but it wasn't what I needed. You know, I've already had that, or, you know, and sometimes you wouldn't know that because you just plan it. So to think that they can choose is awesome. I didn't know we did that. And then I love the teacher-led professional development because I'm telling you, rather than hiring somebody that comes in and tells you all about what to do, teachers that have been doing it and they found what works are way more credible to another teacher.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited about that for District 5. But I was going to ask, are all of them teacher-led? You know, we've really gone away from, you know, where you hire the girl from wherever and they come in and talk to you all day about how
We
to-
believe in creating capacity and celebrating our capacity. So when this LEAD D5 originated, teachers make a choice and stay with that for the duration of the
Makes
year.
sense.
So you go deeper rather than doing conference style where you have a sampling of this and a taste of that, and it doesn't impact the classroom. So you commit to that theme, but it is aligned with our instructional initiative, so you
Sure.
decide where you want to fit.
Right.
We train teacher leaders that are LEAD D5 facilitators during the summer for 3 days, and then we bring them back throughout the course of the year to make sure they have that continued support. So we've had a high return rate of our facilitators, averaging more than 35 return every year. But we still do bring in our Tammy Pulowski's from the Center of Excellence for Poverty Training to make sure
Yeah.
that she's the expert.
Certain expert.
We still bring in our Dr. Donna Elam, who works on cultural competency because she's the expert. But we partner with them with someone who's a LEAD D5 facilitator who understands our model. So when Dr. Elam comes in to do our cultural competency, she's partnered with one of our LEAD D5 facilitators, and they can make sure that that work is within the structure that we want to make sure that our PD is offered through.
Well, I just want you to know, I know all these goals are good, but I am really excited about goal number 4.
Thank
It's
you.
awesome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Ms. Hutchison, we'll come back to you.
Oh, thank you. And my last question is goal number 5. And this has to do with, let's see, what number is it? Number 1, goal 5, number 1, continued monitoring of energy usage and use of existing technology to reduce energy consumption. Some years ago, and Mr. Richardson, you've brought this to us, and in the past, we had asked that when we undertake building projects or any type of endeavors in the school district where we might have to get new materials or even if it's HVAC, that we look at the environmentally sound or cost savings, I don't know, what would you say, your choices. And we understand that oftentimes that those are maybe too cost prohibitive. But we also said, well, perhaps, you know, if you weigh it out in the long term, we wanted to give the finance office the go-ahead to say, well, if you see something, don't just assume because it's not within your budget that we won't go along with it. But if it's something that you think is worthwhile, that in the long run it will save the district money, then please bring it back to the board and say, we can save money if we do this. I believe, Mr. Richardson, you brought that to us with some lighting. And I'm sure there's some other examples that I'm just not thinking about, but I can remember that in particular. But I think that's just important for us to, especially with the transition superintendent, just to remember that this board, I think, has been very interested in cost-saving measures, but also in environmentally good solutions to problems and saving money in the long run.
Very good. Well said. Any other comments, questions? Well, seeing none, that would bring us to the point of needing a motion to approve the proposed superintendent's goals for 2018, 2019. So, Ms. Hutchison.
I move that we give approval of the proposed superintendent's 2018-19 goals. Give approval to those goals as shown in Exhibit B.
Thank you. And Mr. Cates seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. That passes unanimously. And I have to say, these are very ambitious. I know they follow our priorities in District 5 and all the other great things, so we'll be rooting for you and your staff. And I can tell it was a collaborative effort to put all this together, so hats off to you, and we're working together. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Baumgardner.
I like the fact that it's down to 5 goals. In the past, we've had like 11 or 12, and I think it became too comprehensive or too overwhelming, or this covers the same thing in a clearer, more concise manner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've had a vote, we approved, and I guess we can now say get to work really
Yes,
hard.
sir.
So,
Yeah.
no, No,
Just
we're
don't
working
miss
with
any
you.
of 'em.
We'll have a meeting in 15 minutes, executive staff.
Mr. White, did you have something?
I was gonna say, just don't miss any of your goals.
Not even one or a piece of one, right? No, it's very good. All right, that brings us to our discussion agenda, which item number 15, proposed revisions to board policy IC school year, shown in Exhibit C.